Good day and welcome to Mental Health and You. My name is Cynthia Timms and I thank you for joining me and my guests for another day. About a year ago, I fulfilled a long-time dream and took up sailing. Yes, before you turn the channel, before you wonder, oh my, yes, I did go sailing and something I always wanted to do. Always been attracted to the waters, the calming quality of it. But a walk on the beach or sitting on a bench by a fountain or a river just didn't do it. It was nice, but it just didn't do it. I wanted to be on the water, as in a boat. So that's when I found Soul Sailing, Soul Sailing of NYC. And in doing so, I also discovered, much to my delight, that there were others who looked like me who did go sailing, who did take this sport seriously, who had the same type of joys. We're going to talk about that more. Let's watch a video, see how fun it is, right after this.
Okay, hi, this is Cynthia from Mental Health and You, out here on the boat, the beautiful boat in City Island with Ayme Sinclair, and Kate and Dave from Soul Sailing.
Hello.
And we're just out here enjoying the day, taking lessons, getting comfortable. Ayme, you see, is on the tiller, so hopefully I'll be on the tiller soon.
Yeah.
Yes. And Kate will be on the tiller. Yes. But we're doing this. This is sailing. This is like people like us. We sail. We all sail. It feels good. It's calming. It's soothing. And we wish more people would sail. So absolutely. And we're going to talk more about it in the studio. We're going to talk more about it. How to get you involved. Because we want to make it less scary. We want to make it something that you want to do. Something that you look forward to. You know? Want to bring it. Absolutely. So yes, here we are. Thank you.
Well, there you go. That's a little sample, a little example, a little bit of fun that I want to share with you. And in doing so, I want to introduce you now to my guests. Those same guests, those same sailmates, those same sailing as in sailing, not at a prison, okay? Sailmates that was on the boat. This is Dave and Kate Jenkins from Soul Sailing NYC. And also next to them is Ayme Sinclair, competitive sailor and racer, part of Sweet Caroline, a boat that sails out of Long Island, Hempstead, right?
Hempstead Harbor.
Hempstead Harbor. First off, I want to thank you so much for joining.
Thank you
Joining
for having us.
me on Mental Health and You. Because sailing is about, it's physical, but it's also mental. For me, it's like, as I said in my introduction, it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And, but where could I go? You know, the cost of it, all these concerns, were there others who look like me? And how would that make me feel, even if there wasn't others? And why not? So all of this we're going to talk about. But first, talk about soul sailing, Dave and Kate. I mean.
Well, thanks for having us on, Cynthia.
Yeah.
It sounds like sailing speaks to your soul, as it does to mine.
Okay.
Sailing is something that I had a longing to do for a long time. I did it as a young man, and it's always been there for me. In the back of my mind, when I need to take a mental break, my mind goes on a boat on the water, and that's like a little piece of heaven I get to have. So yeah, that's what it does for me.
Kate, how long Soul Sailing been in operation, and
We have been doing soul sailing for about 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about how long I've been sailing, a little bit longer than that. But I didn't have experience before getting out on the water just in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have some longing either, but once I was out, that was it. I was hooked. So
Wow.
it was something that I found in happenstance by meeting this guy, who kind of roped me in to doing it, but I will do it without him in my life. So
Now, before we go on, Ayme, we're going to talk. I made a little joke about our sailmates not prison, but in my mind, it kind of took me out of a prison. It took me out of the prison of depression. It took me out of the prison of loneliness, of anxiety. And it helped me so much because, wow, I went on a boat, something that, you know, my friends and family, you know, thank God for them. I mean, some of them expressed a lot of like fear out of, you know, but it was something I'm so glad I didn't listen to. Because once I got on the boat, it's like, as I said, it's like it took me to another place. But Ayme, I want to get, you know, the fact that it wasn't many people of color. What's going on there? And what was your experiences? And how did you get into this, by the way?
Right. So I got into sailing because a friend of mine invited me to come out and just do some recreational sailing out in Oyster Bay at the Waterfront Center.
Wow.
And that first day that I went out, it was maybe about 8 of us, and we had 2 different boats, and then we wound up what you call rafting the boats up. We put them next to each other, and then we spent the day out in Oyster Bay with floaties behind the boat, and you know, listening to music and having an amazing time. And after that, I was like super hooked. So then they invited me to go with them to the British Virgin Islands to sail, but they said that they would be sailing with no skipper.
Oh,
so
wow.
it would be them. It was actually
skipper
sailing
is
the
another
boat.
word for captain, right?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
that's what Dave is, y'all, captain. A skipper, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ayme.
So that meant that all of us had to like, it meant that we all had to kind of get, pitch in and help out and make the boat move and know how to do things. So I said, well, before I do a week in the Caribbean on this boat, I better know what I'm doing. So I wound up getting certified by the American Sailing Association, which is an amazing organization, and I think about 90% of all the sailors who come into the sport come in that way. And I got my ASA 101 certification. It took about 2 days. And then I got back to New York because I wound up doing it somewhere else with a friend. And I was like, man, I got to get out here. So my coworker found out that I was sailing, and he was nice enough to invite me to come out to the club and race with him on a race night.
What club was this?
So this was Hempstead Harbor Yacht Club.
Okay.
Shout out to Hempstead Harbor. Which is a working man's yacht club. It's definitely not what you normally think of when you think of the word yacht club. It's very inclusive and inviting. And so he invited me to come out, and I was like, what? I can't race? I just learned how to sail. Like, there's no way. And he said, don't you worry, Ayme. We'll show you everything that you need to know.
Right.
And that was the night that I met the team, Sweet Caroline, and I've been racing with them competitively ever since.
And how long has this been now?
This has been 5 years now.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I race with them locally here in the Long Island Sound between White Plains and Long Island. We go to Connecticut, we go to Rhode Island, but I've also gone overseas. So I've sailed in Spain, I've sailed in St. Martin in the Caribbean, and more recently I went to Africa and I sailed there.
Where in Africa?
In Kenya.
Wow, what was that about? So it's all female racing team, y'all.
So
an all female, imagine that. Talk about that, the oppositions, the pressures, the joy, what was that about?
So here's the other thing that happened. So when in New York, after October or so, it's not as fun to go sailing anymore because it's cold. So a lot of the bigger boats come out of the water, and because I fell in love with this thing, I still wanted to sail. So I would take trips and go to different places where the weather was more inviting and make sure when I was there, we would sail. So anytime any of my friends would invite me on something, I'd be like, okay, let me see if we can sail. And that was the same experience that I had when I went to Kenya. It was really just a trip with friends. So we got there and it was New Year's, and it just so happened that the particular town that we were staying in was a coastal town, and they had a huge sailing community. So imagine that. I'm going to Africa and I'm going to be able to be out on the water with a whole bunch of people who look just like me, which was really amazing and exciting for me. But then I started looking at the pictures and I realized, oh, wait a minute, they're all guys. Like, where are the ladies? Even more exciting, they had this huge competitive race that was going to happen on New Year's Day, and they do this every year. And these guys have been sailing their whole entire lives, and they've been racing, so they're really good at this. And I felt like if I'm going to come to this country and I'm going to go out on the water, I want to do something different and make an impact. So I decided, well, I'm going to create the first all-women's sailing team.
So you're going to do that, but it's never been done before.
Never been done.
So what was that about, that opposition? Very traditional?
Yeah. So Lamu, Kenya was where we were, and in Lamu, it is a very traditional society. It is a culture that is mostly Muslim, and it is set back into like what I would think of when I would think of biblical times, meaning there are no cars on these islands. The only way to get around is by foot or by donkey. Okay.
Wow.
So actually there's one car on the island, and it is an ambulance, but it is not for the people, it is for the donkeys.
So what part of sailing plays? Is sailing part of the commerce of it?
So it's several different islands that make up Lamu, and in order to get to the other islands, the only way to do that would be by boat. Even when you fly into the airport, you fly into one island, but most of what's happening is not there. So the minute you arrive, you have to take a boat to go to where you're going to be staying.
Wow.
And then because of the way the tide rolls in at night, because most people stay in the waterfront area, the beach is completely gone. So the only way you can get out of your front door is to get on a boat. So sailing is very much a part of the culture. They do not sail on boats that look like the ones we're used to seeing here. They sail on wooden dhows. And it's one big, huge sail. And it's what a lot of people would call a working boat. But
what does it look like? Noah's Ark? What's a dhow? Educate us.
It's a wooden, so it's a wooden boat. There are two different styles that they have in Lamu. One is called the Lamu style, which is a lot narrower. And there is a very long pole that juts off the side of it, and they use that to hike up on it, and you'll see maybe like 6 or 7 guys on this long trapeze to balance the weight of the boat so that they can make it go faster. And then they have the more traditional boats, which are Mozambique dhows, which is what they take tourists on.
Okay.
So tourists will take this and do sunset sails, and they'll go visit other islands and have experiences. So boat tourism is a big part of what drives the economy, and fishing is also another big part of what drives the economy there. But the women don't really participate in any of that. They don't usually come out of the house very much. They have very domestic sort of duties where they take care of the kids, and that's really it. You don't really see them outside very often either, and very, very few of them know how to swim, which is crazy because this is a group of islands, and it's actually quite dangerous. So for me, it was really important, if I'm going to come to this, if I'm going to come to this town and I'm going to get on a boat, I want to make sure I can make an impact and change the way people think about what women can do. And it was quite difficult to find women to join our team because they were scared. But I managed to pull it together. There were 7 of us.
So what were they afraid of? They were afraid of the actual sailing. They were afraid of the reaction of their husbands, of the male folk in the town. They were afraid of the upsetting the apple cart, the tradition. What is it exactly that all of the 3, all of the above? And
there's an uncomfortableness, and I think this is part of an issue that is within the community of people of color. Is generally we are fearful of the water because a lot of times we do not learn how to swim. So if you don't know how to swim, it's it's a jarring experience to get on a boat and sail, especially if it's going to go like this and like this. You're just uncomfortable. So there's that. There's also the idea that it's the only people who know how to drive these boats are men. So women would feel more comfortable, specifically in this particular town and in this culture, to be with other women, and they wouldn't be comfortable with men training them. So they're at a disadvantage in that way because there's not any women in the community that actually sail. So there's really no one there to like show them until I came, right?
And you showed them in the day.
But see, here's the thing: like that boat is completely different than the boat that I race on here. Okay. So I actually had to learn as well. But I think having me there made them more comfortable to come out and learn, because here I am, someone who does this for recreation and it's a sport for me, but I also want to share something I love, right? So that sort of broke the ice. We did get 2 women from the local village to join us, and we had a couple of other women who had come in from the mainland in Nairobi. And then the 2 girls who were with me on vacation, they also wound up joining the team because, you know, that's what we do when people go on vacation with me.
You said something. Hold that point, Ayme, because I want to get back to you, Dave, about demystifying sailing. So, and when somebody comes for the first time like me, or Ayme, or anybody else, I mean, that's a lot of water. I had an aunt who used to say, that's too much water to drink.
Right.
You know, when it came to sailing, or even swimming. So, I mean, how do you calm those nerves? What do you say? Besides making everybody wear a life preserver?
That's what we do.
Okay.
That's the first step.
Do y'all say prayer? Do y'all do what else going on here?
I usually throw a joke, like, let's see how many people come back. But usually everybody comes back. So we put a life jacket on everybody. That's just so that in any circumstance we're covered. Everybody will be in an auto-inflating life jacket. So if they fall in the water, which, knock on wood, to this day we haven't had happen, and I don't see any reason why it would happen with our protocols, but we put them at ease. So if we see somebody's nervous, we start off with how many things they can do to protect themselves. Where should they be in the boat? How can they hold on to the boat as they move about the boat? The boats we have are very safe, very simple, and things like the boom swinging across, you just got to keep your head low so you don't get hit. But there's plenty of time to warn people about when that's going to happen.
And you're sailing out of where again?
We're sailing out of the Harlem Yacht Club in City Island, New York.
What's that have been about? How's the reaction up there?
Well, you mentioned
and what's your clientele? What do they look like?
So we have a rainbow color clientele, very diverse. In fact, one of our advertisements shows it. Yeah, if you go on our website, you'll see pictures of people from all walks of life coming out on the boat. And male, female, you know, we even allow children on the boat sometimes. Okay. But it's a lot of fun to get out on the water. And
I think I have it, y'all.
One of the things you mentioned was
Soul Sailing.
There you go.
Soul Sailing. Check it out.
It's so difficult to access the water, especially in New York. Property is very expensive. So we're lucky that the Harlem Yacht Club opened its doors and welcomed us in, and we're able to share our love of sailing with the community.
And what's the reaction? How many returnees?
Well, we have a lot of returnees.
Well, you've come back.
Well, yeah, that's only because I wanted to do the show. No, go ahead.
We have a lot of repeat customers, and some of the customers come and they take just a 4-hour sail to get out on the water to see what it's like.
And what's been the reaction? I mean, you know.
And then they get excited and they want to sign up for a class, like the 101, like Ayme said. And they come out for the 101
that
class.
SA 101, what's that about?
ASA, American Sailing Association.
And that's what you took, right?
That's what I took, yeah.
And ASA does a great job of reaching out to people who are not sailors.
And that's the basic, so you can get on a boat?
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really exciting about the ASA program is that it's directed by a woman. The president of ASA is a woman, and they are very interested in diversifying things and trying to make it easier for people to come out on the water. I think knowing that there are women instructors, and I know you're looking to do that soon.
Soul Sailing is owned by a woman. This woman, right?
Yes, yes.
The owner of Soul Sailing, y'all.
Knowing which schools have women sailing instructors, knowing which schools might have instructors that are people of color, because they do exist, they are out there, will probably make you feel more comfortable to want to take a class or get out on the water, because it's really important to see someone who looks like you, who's excelled at this, to make you feel like, hey, you know, I can do this too.
Right.
So I think that's really important.
That's awesome.
And
That's
our
awesome.
last 101 class that we had 4 students, which is typical, and 3 were women, and 1 was a man. And he felt outnumbered, but Dave was on the boat with him.
Well,
No, it was all
Ayme,
good. And we have people from all walks of life. Like I said, we have people who have a lot of money, people who don't have a lot of money.
and does this course, that's, you mentioned money part. Is this an expensive sport?
It can be. It can be. So there are ways that you can do it. Like you can come out for $69 and you can get a 4-hour sail.
Because the more I tell people that I sail now, first they're amazed, and then they want to know how can they get into it.
Really? That's
Yes,
Yeah.
especially young kids, particularly those who look like me, you, Amy, because it's like it takes the mystery out of it. It takes the taboo out of it. Wow, if Cynthia can do it, if Amy can do it, maybe there's a place on the boat for me, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
So how did those women in Kenya feel after? I'm gonna see. Told you I was gonna get back.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also want to touch upon another way to get out where you don't have to pay anything. And that's if you decide you want to be a little bit more adventurous and you want to race.
Staten Island Ferry, right? No, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Circle Line? No, go ahead.
No, I mean,
That's how I started.
if for those who are a little bit more adventurous and they want to learn how to race like I did, and literally, like, I took my ASA 101, and then the next 3 days later, I was racing.
Wow.
So it is not a hard, and I was not an athlete in school. I mean, I played badminton, but that's it.
Yeah, I played
I
that
was in the
too.
band.
They still play that? My God.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So I'm not a typical athletic super person who moves around a lot and runs. That's just not me at all. But I mean, even with that, I was able to join this team and really learn some life skills and find a family of people who I really love and trust. And then we go out there every Wednesday night and we race. And so really at that point, if you are able to join a team, the only thing you really need to spend money on is your sailing gloves and then maybe a pack of beer. Because they named the race the beer can race on Wednesday nights, because after the race, everybody goes back to the club to drink beer.
So you see, guys, that's an incentive right there, okay? For your beer drinkers, it's hot, okay?
Yeah.
Indeed.
We also have a work-study program, so.
Talk about that.
So we'll bring people in, and we're trying to get the youth involved. So we bring kids in who want to learn and who are willing to work, and we show them a little thing about how to fix your boat, how to work on it, maybe put some paint on it, simple stuff that they can do and not get hurt. And we trade them time, put in some time for work, and you get to go sailing.
And that's at
Soul Sailing. Yeah.
Okay, you're at Ayme Sinclair?
Yes, Ayme Sinclair. I know I spell it a little differently. My mom's not very happy about that. But yes, that is the Instagram account that I have. And I will say that when I did learn how to sail and started sailing competitively, I felt like it was really important for me to tell this story. So especially because the team that I race on is mostly women. The women on the team have the more strategic positions on the boat, which is not very typical. And we represent 8 different countries on our team. So, but when you go out and you go and compete on the racing circuit, you don't always see that. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was change that. So I started an Instagram account for the team.
Cool.
And that Instagram account is called Sail Sweet Caroline. And within a couple of years, the Instagram account grew to over 69,000 followers.
It's amazing.
And then I also started working on my own personal Instagram account so I could tell my story from my viewpoint. And that has grown to over 150,000 followers.
And what's the name of that?
That is at AYME SINCLAIR, at Ayme Sinclair.
So you see, y'all, it is possible.
It is.
It is possible to get on that boat. You don't need to be Mr. Howell from what's Gilligan's Island. You know, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. And as we start to wrap up, I want to talk about what sailing has meant to you. What sailing has meant to you, not physically, but what has it taught you? What life skills? If somebody is still hesitating, oh my God, I don't want to get my hair wet, I'm scared, whatever the thing may be. What has it that you can take out that boat and, like, metaphor for life? What has sailing? I'll start with you, Kate, since you...
Well, SOUL actually stands for School of Unexpected Learning. So I think what I found is that it was a way for me to escape the city while I'm still in the Bronx because of where we sail. But I've also found my limitations, what fears I have had while I'm on the water, where those might be coming from, and the opportunity to overcome that.
What about you, Ayme?
Man, I mean, it really, I have to say I had a similar experience to you where I was really unhappy, and getting out on that boat every Wednesday night was like the one thing
Yes, indeed.
that really changed all of the negative feelings that I was encompassed by at that time. And there's like a stat out there that says 72% of the people who get out on the water walk away feeling healthy. There's a lot of stats around how when you get out on the water, it's very stress reducing.
And it reduced your stress, it made you confident.
Yes. If you do decide to join a team, it's also a very wonderful experience, and that you have a group of people who are very supportive of what you're learning and what you're trying to do. Okay. And then it encourages teamwork.
We're going to have to start to wrap up, but
Okay.
this is just the beginning. This is not even the end, because we're going to encourage you to get on the boat. It's about mental health, yo. It's about mental health by learning teamwork. It's about gaining your confidence, lowering your stress level, lowering your anxiety level. And yes, people like us do get on the boat. It's mental health in you. I want to thank the producers and the staff of Bronxnet. I want to thank my guests, Soul Sailing, Kate and Dave Jenkins, Ayme Sinclair from at Ayme Sinclair.
Thank you, Cynthia.
So much, so much. This has been great. This has been wonderful. Mental health in you, y'all. Go out sailing. Have a good day. Sail on. Good night.